Well, hey, welcome to, is it our fourth taking stock or
Number
third?
4, we've got new Bitmojis. I think you got a little jealous of my Bitmoji because you have a beard now. I
Yeah.
think the people want to know, does Brielle approve?
She does not know. I think she's okay with a beard, but I threw out the idea of a mustache, and that really got shut down quickly. No
No
mustaches, apparently.
go.
Yeah.
Probably a good call.
Yeah. So I think we've got some really interesting things on the docket today. We start with the fact that what is old is new again. And I think, looking at a company, I mean, this for a lot of our baby boom clients, this will bring out a lot of memories. So Kodak, Eastman Kodak, a company in the news again. I think we all remember driving up to little photomat booths in the
Do you remember
grocery
that?
store parking lots
Yep.
and developing our Kodak film. So this is a company that refused to recognize the digital revolution in photography, which is in the news again.
It is. They got a loan from the government for almost $800 million to help develop pharmaceuticals or pharmaceutical chemicals. But what was really anomalous, there's a few articles out there about the trading volume and sort of some of the stock awards that insiders got the day before that announcement. Kodak the following day, I can't even remember the percentage, but it made the Hertz situation, pale in comparison as far as, this company that I can't remember what they were working on. But all of a sudden, it was like the hottest stock on Robinhood. And so anyways, there's more to come on that, but definitely what is old is new again. I don't know if you heard anything more specific about it.
Not really. It really, I think, I know it's a chemical company, but it really did sort of take me by surprise. I imagine taking like a vaccine made by Kodak, and somehow that doesn't sit as well as I would like it to.
Maybe
Um,
over time. You had a really interesting, on this what's old is new again theme. You had a really interesting find the other day about antique Chinese bonds. Uh,
Right. So, and it kind of fits in with this idea that, my personal feeling is that a lot of the animosity between the U.S. and China and our kind of adversarial relationship right now is related to a kind of a technology race. But it's
mhm.
taking all sorts of different forms. So there is this group, and I forget what they're called. It's something like, the Society for Old Chinese Bonds or something like that, but they actually are collecting the bonds of the Republic of China. So the communists took over China in 1949, and but there was a lot of Chinese debt that was outstanding at the time, and the communist government just simply didn't recognize it. Well, there have been people who've been collecting those defaulted bonds and are now demanding payment. And they're getting lawyers, and they actually got a meeting with Wilbur Ross, who is
Wow.
the Treasury or Secretary of Commerce, to talk about this. And apparently, if you take all of that debt and you apply, inflation and all the
Throw
interest,
it to today's value.
it's something like $1 trillion, right? So these people are hoping to get the Chinese government to pay their, $1 trillion payout. So as this animosity continues, we may be hearing something about, these efforts to get China to pay these old bonds, which is just fascinating. And unfortunately, I think there are some unscrupulous financial advisors, one of which was down in Texas, a guy by the name of Caldwell, who's been selling these bonds to his elderly customers, which is yeah.
On the flip side of that, when we were talking about this before we started recording, I remember when I started my career, I was working for another financial institution, which was a bank, and I had this customer that came in
You don't
twice.
want to say Wells Fargo?
You know, it, I, I called all that, by the way. My
Yeah,
wife said I was right when all that
yeah.
melted
Brian
down.
knew Wells Fargo was going down.
Yeah. But he would come into the branch every day and he had four of the largest safe deposit boxes. And I got to know him really well because I was dealing with him every day. And finally I said, I can't even remember his name. What are you doing coming in here twice a day and you have all these safety deposit boxes? And he said, well, I kind of sold a business and I moved out here to the West Coast and I was relaxing on the beach and I kind of got bored. So I wanted to find a really inefficient market to become a market maker. And so what I did is I started a website for buying and selling antique paper money, not coins, because coins are there was already a market established for it, but paper. And he built this website, he hired appraisers, he would value what he was buying, put it in a safety deposit box, let it season for 6 months or 9 months, repost it at a profit. And he had a fantastic business. His job was basically, getting paper money in the mail, putting it in a safety deposit box, taking it out, sending it on to the buyer. But when you talked about the Chinese, bonds, I'm sure, his business might be booming at the moment. That was like 15 years ago.
The beauty of the internet, all these little niche areas of interest and people can find each other.
Yeah, the tech and kind of the government intervention. I know I watched a little bit of Jeff Bezos's Senate testimony. Big tech was kind of, I wouldn't say on trial, but Congress and the Senate were trying to understand, how big tech is wielding its power. And this has been kind of like an ongoing thing. We talk about it all the time, right? Last episode, we talked about Amazon, getting bigger and bigger, and is that going to continue for a really long time? And I think the thing that's really interesting about Amazon is in the most trusted brands, I think they ranked first with the younger generation and second with kind of, the over, say 60 or 65 cohort. And
people love their Amazon.
Right. You saw this when the pandemic hit and Amazon switched all its Prime deliveries to only household essential items were 2-day. Everything else kind of got pushed to the back burner. I heard, almost everybody I talked to sort of, bemoaned, I got to wait a week for, the sandals that I bought. So what I think is interesting is when you see kind of governmental bodies kind of hinting at maybe trust busting or breaking these companies up, the political will of the general population, we love that convenience. There was a comedian who did a whole skit on this, right? Prime 2-day, no, we need Prime now, right? One of the biggest benefits of any product or service is convenience, and I mean I think Amazon has that in spades.
Well, if you go back to history, try and name a monopoly that consumers have loved, right? There aren't very many, but today these monopolies they're a little different, right? They're not out there jacking up prices. They're out there probably reducing them at the margins.
I think the trust with Google and Facebook is much lower than Amazon, but Amazon's done a really good job of kind of that brand awareness, across the demographic spectrum is just rock solid. And when we kind of talk about this, another thing that came through yesterday that not a lot of people recognized was Google purchased the home security company ADT. Mm-hmm. And so I think one thing that you and I kind of fall into sometimes is when we talk about tech, we think about, just the ephemeral portions of it, kind of like, technology equals computing power. But when you look at, when Google and Amazon kind of have these cash machines, they're able to go into more the physical realm of business. So buying like ADT, that's a perfect match for Google to sort of build out its smart home. I mean, they already have air conditioning controllers, Nest, and sort of all that stuff. Ring, I have a Ring doorbell where it sort of videos people. But anyways, we were talking a lot about that.
Right. It's sort of the application, taking tech and applying it to everyday stuff, making it, better, faster, cheaper. And that's maybe the next sort of wave of could be stock market gains, or to be honest, this may be what kind of ironically what drives some value stocks. Some more traditional companies are the ones that get innovative and deploy technology into sort of older businesses, sort of these things that we still need and use and want, but they apply technology to make them better, faster, cheaper. And it's kind of an interesting idea too, because a lot of what we see with technology is this sort of attempt to get data, and really that's for the purpose of feeding it into their machine learning, right? So getting better and better at making decisions, creating algorithms that again help with better, faster, cheaper, and so sort of decision making. And I know I read a book recently, and they were just talking a little bit about autonomous driving, and it's fascinating to see it. But a lot of what Tesla and Waymo, which is Google's autonomous driving unit, a lot of what they're doing right now is just simply collecting data. They're out there with these cars cruising the roads, trying to sort of collect data to make autonomous driving better and better. And there's this society of automotive engineers. I didn't know that existed, but they've basically created 5 levels of autonomy in driving. Level 1 is no autonomy. Level 5 is totally autonomous in all conditions. And right now, Teslas are at a level 2, but Tesla has a level 3 car that is basically functional, and the Q8 from Audi would also be a level 3. But I think what's fascinating about all of this is that these companies that are in the forefront are really gaining some advantage because of this data that they're able to collect early on.
Right.
And the other thing that was just kind of just interesting was when you think about the implications of autonomous driving, right?
The knock-on effect is huge.
It's huge, right? I mean, on any given day, like at this moment right now, something like 98%, and during COVID, probably even more, but 98% of our vehicles are unused, right? They're sitting in the garage or in a parking space. And in an autonomous driving world, there's probably far higher usage of those vehicles, which means that, there's acres and acres of parking lots, which will likely be unnecessary in the next, 5-10 years.
Right.
So,
I was listening to a podcast. It kind of goes along with this. It's a little bit synonymous. It's not autonomous driving, but there was a podcast with one of the first investors in Uber, and sort of the pitch when Uber was going around trying to raise money was that they were going to compete against kind of the black town car market, right? They weren't necessarily going after taxis, but that was kind of like maybe that could happen, but it was kind of this, luxury ride experience. They kind of thought taxis might be something, but what they didn't think of was how many people would just not own cars. Yeah. And it became transportation as a service, right? So you take that sort of ease of, transportation on demand, and you take the human element out of it, right? Because that's always the thing with Uber, is there's always kind of, the employment labor laws of, are they an employee? Are they a contractor? Are they getting paid fairly? All that. And you substitute AI or autonomous driving in there, it's going to be, I think someone on the podcast said that, in 20 years, driving your own vehicle will be something only the super rich do, because insurance will be so expensive. So that will be sort of a ostentatious display of wealth, will be driving your own vehicle.
Right. It's interesting. It was kind of an expression of the confidence that these autonomous driving companies have, is that they've all basically said that they'll self-insure. So they'll offer insurance for all of their autonomous vehicles just because they have such great confidence that machines are better than humans at driving, and it'll be far safer in that world.
Right.
So, yeah, and I mean, it's kind of all the things we're talking about, sort of the application of tech to traditional businesses. It's all over, even at
Oh,
Baker.
oh, real quick. One thing I was going to say about autonomous driving is a lot of what they're struggling with is building in imperfection into autonomous driving. So they can build the rules in. They use an example of taking a right turn when someone is crossing a crosswalk towards you. They were getting into fender benders where humans thought the car would go, but that's technically not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to wait for the person to cross the street. So that's kind of the biggest struggle with city driving is sort of, if you think of well, I'm from California, they called it the California stop, right? The rolling stop. Right. And sort of all those little imperfections that, humans, we get kind of lazy because, whatever, don't turn on our blinker. But yeah, they said that's one of the biggest challenges of autonomous driving.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all of this is coming to Baker Boyer too. I think we made huge in the last budget cycle, made really, really big investments in our own technology and ability to produce data that'll allow us to be more systematic with our analytics and making business decisions. So,
right. Yeah, I was, I think it was 2 or 3, I don't know, time flies now, but it was, maybe 4 years ago that Baker Boyer onboarded a whole new client relationship management software system. And I went to this conference, and what was interesting is one of the keynote kind of poster businesses for using a CRM system was a roofing company, right? Their adoption of tech helped them grow. They were sort of, they were able to have the CRM on their phone.
And just CRM is customer relationship management. So it's having data that allows you to better serve your customers.
Right. And they were able to centralize the bidding process, right? So they, had their 2 best estimators sort of, getting these bids from field guys. Like they were sharing knowledge. They were able to, they were even doing GPS on their phone, right? So they knew exactly where they were. They were taking pictures of stuff and, shooting it through. And it was just interesting to me because, again, when you and I sort of talk about tech, we think of,
AI.
Amazon, Facebook, Google, and sort of AI and these, ephemeral concepts. But really, when you think about the opportunity for currently successful businesses to leverage that technology and those analytics, I mean, the sky's kind of the limit, right? Baker Boyer is a good example of the oldest bank in Washington State, right? And we're running as fast as we can to sort of find places to deploy this kind of technology.
Yeah. And we talked about it.
Business owner the other day, and he was blown away by our conferencing, adoption of conferencing software. He was like, "Wow, Teams, like this is, you're able to do that. Oh, you can have a whiteboard, just all the."
Well, we talked about it in Taking Stock number 2, where Domino's and Google went public. I think within a month of each other, and Domino's has had a better return than Google over that time period. No one would think that, but it really was because they have taken this traditional thing of pizza delivery and applied technology. Better, faster, cheaper.
What's old is new again.
What's old is new again. All right. Well, I think we probably ought to wrap things up.
Yep. You got a camping trip to go on. So
I do. Yep.
Good luck.
See you in 2 weeks.
Yep. All right. Take care.
Bye.